After 1,300 hours of playtime and testing several settings, I have finally managed to come up with settings that were good enough for me to give me nuke tamer. Today, I'll show you how to get settings personalized for yourself and good enough to the point where you will get called a hacker like this. Yes, those were actual accusations I have received. And no, I have never hacked. Okay, to start the process, first click on the link down in the description that says Settings Maker. Once happened, copy everything in the text box and go to your Krunker game.
Open Settings.
Then click Reset.
Make sure you reset or else things will get messy.
And click Import. Paste all the text you copied by pressing Ctrl and V. Click Import. If you want the exact settings I use, you can click on SXGY Settings in the description and copy that instead. I do, however, recommend you to create settings based on your play style, because my hand size, my mouse, my keyboard, my dominant hand, my monitor size, my mousepad, my muscles, my appearance, and my pants are all different with yours, and what works for me will most likely not work for you. After getting the settings maker, go back to settings, turn on advanced, and follow along with me. In the general tab, put the region on whichever region you want to play on. Under network, you can put the network rate to 360. Do turn on auto routing and try a few games with it. 90% of the times, it improves ping, but if it did make your ping worse, turn it back off. For lag compensation, I recommend having it on 1. However, if you only play on servers where your ping is less than 40, then you can play with lag compensation on 0. Under server browser and matchmaking, I have everything off and I recommend you keeping it that way. If you turn on grouped region, your server finder will change. Legacy browser also changes your server finder, and if you like it that way, keep it on. Under experimental, I recommend having raw mouse input enabled as it can reduce mouse flicks. If you still experience mouse flick issues, you can turn on mouse flick fix and change the value to see if that helps. The other two options, keep them off. I've never seen them being useful. Go to controls, have a look in the keybinds and see if you want to change anything. It's all personal preference. Under gameplay is where we change our mouse sensitivity. Don't touch gameplay settings unless if you want a different sense for every weapon. Make sure you have the same value for all of the sliders here. Now, if you want to find a sense that works for you, you need to consider some factors. For me, with a Superlight mouse, a smooth mousepad, and the 240Hz monitor, 0.19 seems to be the best sensitivity I could use. This wouldn't apply to you, however. If you have a monitor refresh rate of 75Hz or lower, it is normal to go for a higher sensitivity. Vice versa, if you have a screen refresh rate of 144 or higher, it's normal to have a lower mouse sensitivity. Also, if you have a very heavy mouse, it is normal to increase your sense a bit. And if you have a light mouse, it is okay to play with a lower sensitivity. I can't really give you the best sense since it's different for every person watching this. But a good practice is to hop on a map like Sandstorm and try to keep your crosshair on a small object like this doorknob. Keep walking left and right while moving your crosshair to be on the object. If you're shaking a lot and have to do lots of micro adjustments to keep your crosshair on the knob, it means your sense is probably too high. If you're struggling to move the crosshair to the knob and it feels like you're moving faster than the crosshair, your sense is probably too low. Keep in mind when finding your sense that having smoother aim is way better than having flashy and shaky aim. Don't worry about controller, that is for controller players, and I don't think any of them exist in Krunker. Under display, most options are personal preference. If you already have the settings maker, the options will be set how I have mine set, so you won't need to change much unless if you prefer anything different. Some of the options here I will still run through as they can affect your gameplay. For UI scale, because it can change the health bar of people you shoot at, I recommend you to keep it not anywhere higher than 0.6. Reason for that, you need to practice on how to aim at the enemy, and having too big of a health bar can give you the bad habit of looking at the health bar and aiming under it. I recommend you to keep dynamic health bar, show damage, show movement speed, and show medals off, as they can only add distractions to your screen. There is an option here for FPS update rate. I tried putting this on 0 in the past and it caused more delays and some game freezing issues, but made the game feel a little bit faster. I'm still not sure how this setting helps, but most good players I've seen keep it on 150, so I recommend you not to change it. For the crosshair, having a crosshair based on your playstyle works better in my opinion. For me, having a crosshair works better when I'm playing weapons that have more head clicking into them, such as FAMAS, revolver, sniper, or semi. When I play weapons that require more tracking and keeping the crosshair on the target, just a simple dot crosshair seems to work better for me. These weapons include assault rifle, SMG, LMG, Uzi, or blaster. The settings for dot crosshair I use are on the screen if you want to copy that. If you want the crossed crosshair, I have put the image for it in my Discord crosshairs channel. One tip I can give you for crosshair is try playing with a bigger crosshair if you miss a lot of shots. Once you feel confident in your aim and know that you barely miss any shots, then it's safe to reduce your crosshair size. Lastly, for hit marker, it's completely up to you if you want them on or off. I generally find it easier to have them off while I'm playing tracking based weapons, as it reduces visual clutter, making it easier to see what you're aiming at. Under resolution, you almost want all options disabled, just like how it is in the settings maker. This tab has the most to do with your FPS, and you want your game to run as smoothly as possible. If you're not getting enough frames, reducing resolution is a good way to give you a small bit of FPS boost. With the aspect ratio, I've always played on preset as it matches your computer's resolution. It is possible to change this and still do well, but I recommend keeping it on preset. Particle distance, put it on 10. The option doesn't add anything to your gameplay. For render distance, you need to see everything in the distance, and 50 seems to be enough to see everything on all Krunker maps. For lighting, you can see the difference between every option on the screen and choose whichever one you want. Normal is the one I prefer, but high and low are viable options too. Under game, the only things that affect your gameplay are under view model. For field of view, it's best to play on a low FOV. Krunker has pretty small maps, and you don't need to see the corners of the screen to find hiding enemies, so low FOV works just fine. With that being said, having a high FOV is still viable. Try to be in the 80 to 120 range when finding your FOV, and do not change this option frequently, as it can affect the way you aim. I usually use a 90 FOV and it works best for me. For ADS FOV power, you almost always want to keep this on the lowest value possible, which is 0.3. I kept show hands and show primary off to have less visual clutter while I'm aiming. It's a good idea to keep show secondary and melee on, so you can find out if you have accidentally swapped to any of these weapons mid-game. Make sure you keep wall slide off, unless if you want this to happen when you are on SMG. Sound options are personal preference, so I'll leave it up to you to change them. Under client, changing angle graphics backend to D3D or OpenGL sometimes improves FPS depending on the computer. So try both and see if your game runs any better. Thanks for watching. If you want to see how I got nuke tamer with these settings, click on the video on the screen.